Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're really trying to get to grips with project management, maybe you're digging into the PRINCE2 framework, you'll know the real meat isn't just in the processes. It's deeper. Today, we're moving past just definitions. We want to get a solid handle on those mandatory guiding rules, the things you absolutely have to do if you're going to say you're managing a project with PRINCE2.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's all about the 7 principles. You can think of these as, I don't know, the core laws of PRINCE2.
Yeah.
If you ignore one, the whole thing kind of falls apart, really.
Right.
They're the standard for whether you're genuinely using the method. And honestly, understanding the implications of these 7, that's where the mastery lies.
And it's interesting how versatile the sources say PRINCE2 is. They really stress its universality. It sounds like it's designed for pretty much any project you can think of. Size, complexity, how you deliver it, doesn't matter.
That's the idea. Real flexibility. So you could be running a traditional waterfall project, step by step.
Linear-sequential, yeah.
Right. Or maybe you're all in on agile, iterative stuff, or even a mix, a hybrid approach. These principles, they stick, they're constant. And that's why it's used all over the world, businesses, government, nonprofits, you name it.
So what's the magic then? How does it manage to work across all those different styles?
Well, it's the principles themselves. They give you the framework, the guardrails, to then tailor everything else, the processes, the themes, the documents to fit your actual project.
Ah, okay.
Without losing that essential control, you see. As long as you genuinely stick to the spirit and the letter of these 7 principles, you are using PRINCE2 and using it well.
Okay, mission accepted. Let's unpack these 7 pillars. We'll focus on the main idea, maybe some of the less obvious points, and hopefully some examples that make them easier to remember. Where do we start? Principle 1.
Let's kick off with the absolute foundation. Principle number 1. Ensure continued business justification. Basically, any PRINCE2 project needs a solid reason, a business justification that makes the investment worthwhile right at the beginning.
Okay, makes sense. Start with why.
Yes, but crucially, that justification has to stay valid continuously through the entire project, from start to finish.
That really shifts the focus, doesn't it? It's not just, did we finish the project? It's, is this project still worth doing? So if the reason disappears halfway through, you pull the plug.
You have to. And here's a key thing for anyone managing projects. Stopping a project because the justification evaporated isn't failure. It's actually seen as a positive thing for the business.
How so?
Well, think about it. You're stopping the drain on money, on people's time, on resources, freeing them up for projects that do still have value. It's responsible management.
That completely reframes how you think about stopping work.
Okay, but what about those projects you kind of have to do? Like regulations change, you need to comply. Is there still a justification needed then?
Oh, absolutely. Even for mandatory projects, the justification might shift slightly. It becomes about justifying the way you're doing it. You still need to demonstrate that your chosen approach is the best value for money, even if the outcome itself isn't optional. Gotcha. And looking at how this applies, the justification isn't always just about pounds and pence, is it?
No, definitely not. Think about a customer and a supplier working together. The customer might be looking for, say, more market share, maybe lower costs, fairly typical financial drivers.
Right.
But the supplier, their justification could be quite different. Maybe it's strategic. They might get a really impressive reference customer out of it, which helps future sales. Or maybe it helps them build skills in a new technology they want to break into. Both sides need their own clear reason to stay involved.
That need for clarity, it leads us right into principle number 2, learn from experience. Now, this sounds straightforward, right? Everyone wants to learn. But PRINCE2 seems to demand more than just hoping lessons get learned.
It does. It mandates a more formal, structured way to capture lessons and actually use them. It's about tackling the challenge of making sure knowledge doesn't just stay with one person or one team.
So the project team has to actively look for lessons, record them, and importantly, implement changes based on them, both from old projects and as the current one progresses.
That's it. You're constantly seeking ways to improve.
The sources seem to break this learning down into 3 stages. Can we think about these less like a checklist and more like maybe stages you have to actively manage?
Yeah, you could see it like a cycle. First, when you're starting a project, you look back. What did previous projects teach us? Maybe similar projects elsewhere. You use that info to shape your approach right from the off. Avoid old mistakes.
Makes sense. Don't reinvent the wheel or the flat tire.
Exactly. Then, while the project is progressing, lessons need to be captured regularly in reports, during reviews. Definitely at the end of each stage. If you're using agile methods, this is where things like retrospectives really fit in perfectly.
Okay.
And finally, at the closing stage, you package up what you've learned during this project and make sure it's available for others in the future. Feed the organizational knowledge base.
I think the really critical bit here, the thing people might miss, is the difference between just identifying a lesson and actually learning it.
Oh, that's crucial. If you write down a lesson, but it doesn't actually change how you or someone else does things next time, well, you've only identified it. You haven't learned it.
Right.
Real learning needs the data, the analysis, the insight, sure, but it absolutely needs the application. Applying the lesson is what makes it learned. Otherwise, it's just, well, more paperwork.
And how does this scale? I mean, learning in a small team sitting together must be different from a huge global project.
Massively different. In that small, co-located team, learning can happen almost organically. Daily stand-ups, quick chats, it's fast.
Yeah.
But in a big, complex project, maybe across different countries, different time zones, the challenge is huge. You need much more formal mechanisms, maybe training videos, specific workshops, maybe even simulations to get the message across effectively and consistently. The project's complexity really drives how formal your learning process needs to be.
Okay, so if learning is about what we do and how we improve it, principle number 3, define roles, responsibilities, and relationships, tackles the who. We've all been in those meetings where nobody's quite sure who makes the final call, right? This principle aims to stop that.
Precisely that. PRINCE2 demands a structure that's clear, it's defined, and critically, it's agreed by everyone involved. And this structure needs to properly represent the 3 main stakeholder interests.
Which are?
The business interest, focused on value for money, is the project viable? The user interest, representing those who will use the project's products, specify their requirements, and ultimately get the benefits. And the supplier interest, providing the resources, the skills, the actual delivery capability.
And the project board is designed to reflect these 3.
Yes, that's the intention behind the typical project board structure with the executive, senior user, and senior supplier roles.
And getting these roles defined isn't always easy, is it? Projects often pull people from different departments, maybe even different companies.
That's a core challenge. Projects are temporary structures, often cutting across normal organizational lines. Your day-to-day line manager might not be the right person to hold project accountability. That's why the principle also explicitly includes relationships. It's actually one of the 5 integrated elements in PRINCE2 now, emphasizing people. The goal is to get a structure where everyone knows who's responsible for what, who reports to whom for the project, and how decisions get made. Coherent and effective.
Can you give an example of how this plays out, maybe in a slightly more complex setup?
Sure. Imagine a project that's part of a larger program. The program might have a specific role, like a business change manager, who's responsible for ensuring the program's benefits are actually realized.
Okay.
In that situation, it might make perfect sense for that business change manager to also sit on the project's board, maybe as the project executive or the senior user, to ensure the project stays tightly aligned with the bigger picture.
Linking strategy to delivery.
Exactly. Or think about agile development. You might tailor the role so that the traditional team manager role is actually shared amongst the development team members. They collectively take responsibility for delivering the work within the agreed boundaries. It reflects how they work.
Okay, understanding those boundaries, those limits, brings us neatly to a really powerful principle. Number 4, manage by exception. This is all about delegation, but with safety nets.
Yes, precisely. It works by setting up agreed tolerances for how much things can deviate from the plan before needing intervention from above.
And tolerance isn't just a vague idea, it's a defined range.
It is. It's the acceptable amount of variation, could be above or below the target in the plan, that the project manager is allowed to handle themselves without having to escalate it up to the project board.
Now, the sources really hammer this home for anyone serious about PRINCE2. Yeah. You need tolerances for 7 specific things. We know time and cost, maybe scope and quality. But why benefits? Why sustainability? Why risk? Why are these also critical for tolerance?
Well, that's where the power lies. Time, cost, scope, quality. They mostly focus on the delivery aspect. Are we building the thing right?
Yeah.
But adding benefits, sustainability, and risk forces you to keep an eye on the bigger picture. Is the project still worth doing? If your forecast shows that the expected benefits are likely to drop below the agreed tolerance level, that immediately questions the business justification linking straight back to Principle 1. You must escalate that.
Ah, okay, it connects the dots.
Exactly. And sustainability tolerance makes sure you're keeping environmental or social impacts within acceptable limits. Risk tolerance ensures the overall level of risk exposure doesn't creep up beyond what the organization is willing to accept. It forces a holistic view.
So fundamentally, this principle keeps senior managers focused. They don't get bogged down in the day-to-day unless something is forecast to go wrong to breach tolerance. An exception.
That's the efficiency of it. Decisions get made at the right level. The project manager manages the stage within their delegated authority, within tolerance. The project board only steps in when those limits are threatened.
Give us a quick scenario.
Okay, imagine a PM forecasts that some critical materials they're buying won't arrive on time. This delay is going to push the stage finish date beyond the agreed time tolerance set out in the plan.
Immediate flag.
Immediate exception report. The project manager must inform the project board straight away. The board then has to decide what to do. Maybe they can adjust the tolerance, maybe they need to change the scope to compensate, or in a worst-case scenario, maybe this triggers a review of the project's viability.
Okay, so if managed by exception sets the limits for the project manager, then principle number 5. Managed by stages seems to set the checkpoints for the project board.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, the project has to be planned, monitored, and controlled on a stage-by-stage basis. And a stage is just a chunk of the project that the project manager looks after on behalf of the board.
And we know every PRINCE2 project needs at least 2 stages. Initiation plus at least 1 delivery stage. But hang on, if we're delegating stage management, isn't there a risk the PM just gets focused on their current stage and loses sight of the overall goal? Tunnel vision.
That's a potential risk, but the principle has a built-in control for it. Managing by stages isn't just about breaking work down. It provides natural review points. At the end of every stage, the project board gets to formally review progress, reassess the business justification.
So they reconfirm viability.
Exactly. They check if the project still makes sense before committing resources to the next chunk of work.
So the board isn't just signing off the whole budget up front and hoping for the best.
Absolutely not. They authorize one stage at a time. Approval for the next stage only comes if the business case still stacks up, Principle 1 again, and, practically, if the money's still there. It's an iterative funding and control model.
And this stage approach works even with things like Agile.
Oh yeah, very well. When tailoring Prince2 for Agile, a project manager might define management stages as, say, lasting for a specific number of sprints or time boxes.
Okay.
So even though the development team is working in short, iterative cycles, the project board still has these pre-agreed larger checkpoints where they get formal updates, review the overall progress and direction, and give the go-ahead for the next block of sprints. It maintains governance.
Right, let's shift focus slightly with principle number 6. Focus on products. This sounds like it's about avoiding just being busy, avoiding activity for activity's sake.
You've nailed it. The focus has to be squarely on defining and delivering the actual outputs, the products that the users need. It's about being output-oriented, not just work-oriented. The deliverable is king.
And to keep that focus sharp, Prince2 distinguishes between different kinds of products. We have management products and specialist products. What's the key difference and why does it matter?
Okay, management products are the things you need to run the project. Think plans, reports, logs, the business case itself. They enable control.
The tools of the trade.
Pretty much. Specialist products, on the other hand, are the actual things the project is being run to deliver. The software the user will use, the building that gets constructed, the research paper that gets published. These are the things that ultimately deliver the benefits.
And confusing them is bad because
you might end up spending all your effort perfecting a beautiful Gantt chart, a management product, while the actual software the user needs, the specialist product, is falling behind or doesn't meet requirements. Focus on the deliverable.
Okay, so management and specialist. What else?
Well, there's the overall project product. That's the sum total, the complete set of outputs the project delivers. And then you also have external products. These are things the project depends on but doesn't create itself. Maybe it's a component from another team or a new industry standard you have to comply with, things outside your direct control but essential inputs.
And really nailing down these product definitions helps control scope creep, doesn't it?
Massively. If you have a clear, agreed description of what the product is, whether that's a detailed spec or maybe a set of user stories in Agile with acceptance criteria, then any proposed change has to be evaluated against that baseline.
Right.
It forces the conversation. Does this change request actually contribute to the agreed product, or is it something new? It helps keep things on track and ensures you're building what the user actually agreed they wanted at the start. Reduces the risk of nasty surprises at the end.
So for a simple project like publishing a book, maybe one main product description covering chapters, format, etc. is enough. How does this scale up for complex stuff?
In more complex situations, particularly agile, you'd break that overall product down. Your product descriptions might take the form of features, epics, user stories. These become the items in your product backlog.
Okay.
But the principle holds. The delivery team always has a clear definition of what they are building in the current iteration and what done looks like for that piece of work. Product focus remains central.
Which brings us neatly, full circle almost, to the last principle, the one that enables all this flexibility we talked about. Principle number 7, tailor to suit the project.
Yes, PRINCE2 isn't meant to be applied like a rigid template. It's a framework, a toolkit. This principle explicitly states that you must adapt it, tailor it, to fit the specifics of your project, the environment it operates in, its size, its complexity, how you're delivering it, the team's experience, the level of risk involved.
So tailoring makes sure the method fits the context, like aligning with existing company processes, maybe HR or finance procedures. And it also makes sure the level of control is right, like how often you report.
Exactly. You adjust the formality and frequency of controls. A small internal project doesn't need the same reporting overhead as a massive public infrastructure project.
And what happens if you don't tailor?
You get problems. Two main types. One is what's sometimes called robotic or inattentive project management, where you follow every single step in the manual by rote, regardless of whether it adds value. Creates huge amounts of bureaucracy. The other extreme is heroic project management, where you basically ignore the framework entirely and just make it up as you go along. Often leads to chaos and lack of control. Tailoring finds the sensible middle ground.
And who makes the call on how to tailor it?
Good question. The project manager is typically responsible for figuring out and recommending the tailoring approach, but ultimately the project board is accountable. They have to sign off on it.
Okay.
And that agreed tailoring approach needs to be documented, usually as part of the main project initiation documentation, the PID, so everyone knows how PRINCE2 is being applied on this specific project.
Let's take that customer supplier example again. Say the supplier uses Scrum internally, not PRINCE2.
Yeah.
How would tailoring work there?
Okay, the project manager would need to map things. They'd tailor the PRINCE2 terminology, perhaps, to align better with the supplier's Scrum terms, just to avoid confusion in meetings.
Right.
They might propose tailoring the standard PRINCE2 team roles slightly, maybe adding a specific customer SME role to work closely with the supplier's product owner. And critically, they defined how PRINCE2 governance would overlay the supplier's sprint cycles, like defining that sprint reviews will feed into the PRINCE2 stage boundary assessments. It ensures you keep PRINCE2 control while respecting the supplier's way of working.
So we've walked through all 7, from making sure the project is always justified, right through to learning, roles, managing by exception and stages, focusing on what you deliver, and finally, tailoring it all. These really are the non-negotiables, the foundations.
They absolutely are. They provide the essential structure, the guardrails, but they also provide that critical flexibility, allowing you to adapt PRINCE2 to pretty much any project, any context, anywhere in the world, all while making sure it remains a properly controlled, effectively managed process. That's the core value proposition of PRINCE2, really.
Okay, so as you, our listener, continue your journey towards PRINCE2 mastery, really embedding these principles is key. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on, linking a couple of them together. We talked about Principle 1, Continued Business Justification, and mentioned that sometimes the justification isn't financial. It could be something like gained market authority or improved staff morale.
Qualitative benefits, always tricky.
Exactly. So the question is, how would you apply Principle 4, managed by exception, to that? How could you actually design a tolerance around a purely qualitative benefit, like, say, improved staff morale? What could you measure, and what deviation would be acceptable before you had to escalate to the board saying that justification might be weakening? How do you put boundaries around something so subjective, something to think about?